In this video, I am going to be guiding you through Chapter 4.4, Location Decisions. These are the syllabus statements. So, what is the importance of location? Well, it helps the owners decide on the location for their firm to operate in. So sometimes this is for starting up their business, expanding their business, or just simply changing their location. For a manufacturing firm, the factors that they need to consider is the method of production, as job production requires less resources and less space and less components. However, flow production requires a large amount of space, therefore a large amount of components and transportation costs. So being near to the raw materials is very important. Another factor is that they need to be close to their market, as they need to sell their goods very quickly. So for example, if a product is perishable, like milk or food products, the speed of delivery is very important. Next, they need to be close to the providers of their raw materials. So this will allow the business to easily and cheaply acquire the materials, which will lower their average costs. External economies are there to support the business, such as the equipment maintenance, plumbing, banks, electricians, etc., etc. Availability of labor. This will ensure that skilled laborers will be available to work for the business to create high-quality products. Also, the wages in different locations may differ, so this needs to be considered as it will add costs. Next, we have government influence, and these are the incentives such as grants to firms that set up their businesses or factories in low development areas to supply jobs. The government can also impose rules and restrictions in setting up in areas with natural beauty. Next, we have transportation and communication infrastructure, which will make it easier for the business to export their goods to other locations. Some examples include road, rail, and air transportation system, and it has to be convenient to the business to access these. Next, we have power and water supply, and this needs to be reliable and steady to ensure that the business can produce 24/7. Lastly, we have climate. So sometimes manufacturers will encounter disaster risks, so they need to avoid location with high risks of natural disasters. Moreover, energy costs will increase. If it's too cold, they'll need to put on the heating. If it's too warm, then they'll need to turn on the air conditioning. Lastly, raw material availability, such as the transportation, will be impacted by the climate. Now moving on to the location decisions for businesses that provide a service. Our first factor is the availability of customers, as having direct contact with customers is very important, and it needs to be convenient for the customers to access the business itself. Second factor is technology, as it is easy to shop and make payments with the use of new technology. As having less direct access to services and proximity to the customer, some businesses will choose to locate in low rent areas as technology gets better. The next factor is availability of labor, as every business requires skilled workers. They also can locate close to the residential areas as the supply of employees are increased. However, with work from home and technology, this is now less of a factor, especially in the service industry. Our next factor for location decisions is the climate of the area. As for tourism services, they need to be located in places with relatively good climate. Another factor is being near to other businesses, as they can provide supplies, equipment and maintenance, and close to its competitors to provide a more competitive environment. Next, rental and tax. Next, we have rent and tax, as some locations are much cheaper to rent than others, but it does come with some sacrifices. If they are able to get a good location with cheap rent, then profitability will go up. Moreover, the taxes in the location, if they are lower, the cost of production again will be lowered. So moving on to a retail business. Firstly, shoppers and customers, as the retail business would like to locate themselves in areas where shoppers are very frequent. They get high levels of foot traffic, and at the end of the day, they will attract as many customers as possible. So a good location for a retail business is to locate themselves in the middle of a city center. Nearby shops will be another factor because this will attract customers from other nearby shops. And in turn, they are able to keep an eye on the nearby competition and what they are doing. Another factor is customer parking availability, as this gives a high degree of convenience for the customers, and then this will attract more customers as it is convenient for them to go shopping. Availability of vacant premise. This is very important as it helps businesses expand their business if there is available shop area for them to buy or rent. The cost of rent and taxes are yet again another factor, as low rents and low taxes will decrease the total cost of the business, which leads to higher levels of profitability. Our next factor is access to delivery vehicles. If the business offers delivery, which most businesses do these days, access to these vehicles is very important. Next, we have security. So if an area has got high rates of crime and theft, this is bad for the business, as this will increase costs of production significantly. However, this is somewhat mitigated if the business decides to go into a shopping complex, as it is more secure compared to a retail shop on the street. And last but not least, having access to skilled employees, as these employees are able to sell the product, offer excellent customer service, and increasing the brand reputation of the business. Now moving on to why businesses locate in different countries. Our first reason is that they can get access to new markets overseas. This will increase their demand substantially as they get an access to a whole new population set in a different country. Next, they get access to much cheaper raw materials. This means that if they locate in the country that has raw materials for significantly cheaper, they are able to deliver these materials to their factory at a much lower cost. Another reason why businesses locate in different countries is that they get access to cheaper skilled workers. This will mean that the overhead costs will decrease and increasing profitability. Next, we have the availability of government grants, as some governments are very welcoming to new businesses expanding into their country. They welcome them with money. So this is in the form of a grant. And lastly, governments will offer businesses lower tax rates to promote and welcome new businesses into their country. So what are the legal controls on location decisions for businesses? Well, government can offer grants and subsidies that will be given to businesses to attract them into their country. But what they can do is to deter businesses into setting up in specific areas due to a reduction of noise, air, and water pollution. They can also impose planning restrictions due to overcrowding, or maybe preserving areas of natural beauty. And lastly, legal controls for employment are very different in different countries, so they need to take these into account. So moving on to the solved examination questions. Please be reminded that I have an examination technique playlist down in the description below. Explain 2 factors SCT should consider when deciding on the location of a new factory in the same country. Access to cheap cost of land. This is because they require a large space to locate their new factory. They need to find low-cost land as they are a small business to sell their tables. Factor 2. Availability of labor, as having access to trained employees is important as their turnover rate is very high, and this will reduce costs to lower turnover. Explain 2 reasons why choosing the right location for a new salon is important for Colo. Reason 1. Rental costs. As they want to locate in the city center, rental costs might be very high. This will add to overhead costs, and they might have a negative impact on profit margins. Reason 2. Access to skilled employees. Because finding skilled employees is important as they can offer a high-quality service to their customers, which will create repeat customers and will therefore increase brand loyalty for cutting hair. Identify and explain 2 factors that M&R might consider when deciding on the location for the new showroom. Factor 1. Cost of land. This is important because they are displaying large products such as cars. Therefore, finding low cost of land is important because this will affect their overhead costs, in turn affects their profit margins. Factor 2. Availability of skilled labor. M&R will need skilled labor as they can effectively sell cars, and furthermore, they require a new manager that they can be effective and efficient in customer service and sales. Explain 2 factors a service should consider when deciding on a suitable location. Which factor do you think is more important and why? Well, rent is the most important factor because it is a fixed cost. And if the rent is too high, the profit margins will be affected and also working capital. However, having access to appropriate employees or skilled employees is the most important, as having enough trained workers will offer high-quality service for the customers. I think that rental is not the most important, as the business has no influence over the rental costs. Therefore, I think that having highly skilled employees is the most important for the service sector, as customer service is an expectation, as this is directly linked to the brand reputation of the business. I hope this helped. I hope you have a good day. Bye-bye.